I love you, just not in public yet. The words slid through the half-closed patio door like a blade. He laughed softly, intimate, familiar. I'll be there after this dinner thing. She won't question it. I was standing 5 feet away holding champagne flutes. The glass trembled in my hand. 3 years together, shared lease, wedding venue booked, and I was this dinner thing. Something inside me didn't shatter. It hardened. The February wind cut through my dress, but I couldn't move. My feet had rooted to the balcony floor. Blake's voice continued, low and confident, speaking to someone who clearly mattered more than I did. The champagne in my hands caught the moonlight, bubbles rising like tiny lies surfacing. Yeah, after Valentine's, the refunds process in March. Refunds. My brain stumbled over that word, trying to make it mean something innocent. It couldn't. I looked down at the champagne. We were supposed to toast our future tonight. Instead, I was learning I didn't have one. Not with him. The glasses felt heavy suddenly, like they were filled with concrete instead of celebration. He came back smiling. Miss me already? He teased, brushing his thumb over my jaw like I belonged to him. I searched his face for guilt. Nothing. Just confidence. Predators don't look nervous. His eyes were clear, relaxed. He kissed my forehead like he always did, that gentle press that used to make me feel safe. Now, it felt like a performance, a habit he maintained because it cost him nothing. His cologne was the same expensive brand I'd bought him for Christmas. The scent made my stomach turn. You okay? He asked, tilting his head slightly. You look pale. Just cold, I managed, my voice somehow steady. He wrapped his arms around me and I let him. My body went through the motions while my mind raced in a different direction entirely. 3 years of this. 3 years of believing every word, every promise, every future he painted for us. How long had he been splitting himself between me and someone else? How long had I been the fool standing on balconies holding champagne while he planned my exit? That's when I knew. On Valentine's night, I was going to toast my cheating fiancé. And he had no idea what was in my speech. My name is Gabby Schaffer. I'm 35 years old, operations manager, planner, builder. And tonight, I was done building a life for a man who was quietly dismantling mine. The decision didn't feel dramatic. It felt inevitable, like watching an equation finally balance after months of broken math. I wasn't the type to throw dishes or scream in parking lots. I was the type who read contracts twice and kept backups of everything important. Blake had always loved that about me. You're so level-headed, he'd say proudly, like he'd won some kind of prize. Nothing rattles you. He thought my calm was weakness. He was about to learn it was strategy. I picked up my phone and opened a new note. Started documenting everything. Timestamps, exact words, the tremble in his voice when he'd said her name. I was building a case, brick by brick, the way I'd been trained to do in my job. Evidence doesn't lie. People do. 2 weeks earlier, he had said something I couldn't stop replaying. You're not the jealous type. That's why you're wife material. Wife material. Translation. Safe. Predictable. Too invested to leave. I had smiled when he said it. Took it as a compliment, proof that I was mature, secure, different from his exes who'd been too needy and emotionally exhausting. His previous girlfriend had apparently checked his phone constantly, questioned every late meeting, made scenes at parties. He'd painted her as unstable. Now I heard it differently. I wasn't wife material. I was convenient material. The kind of woman who wouldn't ask questions when he worked late, who wouldn't check his phone because trust is everything, who wouldn't make scenes at parties or demand attention. I was the perfect cover. Stable enough to bring home to family, calm enough not to notice the gaps in his schedule, practical enough to fund a wedding while he moved money around behind my back. He didn't want a wife. He wanted an alibi with a joint bank account. He had insisted we merge savings to make wedding planning easier. I transferred $32,000. He contributed $4,500. I told myself love wasn't math. It is. The joint account had been his idea back in November. He'd framed it as romantic, a symbol of our commitment. What's mine is yours, he'd said, holding my hand across the kitchen table, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. We're building a future together. Might as well start acting like it. I'd moved my savings that same week. Money I'd carefully accumulated over 8 years of promotions and bonuses. Money that represented security, independence, choices. He'd moved his 2 months later. After I'd already paid the venue deposit, after I'd already bought my dress, after I'd covered the photographer's retainer and the caterer's down payment. Now, checking the account on my phone in our dark bedroom while he slept beside me, I saw something I'd missed before. Withdrawals. Small ones, spread out over weeks, 200 here, 350 there. Dinners I hadn't attended, hotels I hadn't stayed in. He'd been spending our wedding fund on someone else. While I planned centerpieces and seating charts, he stopped introducing me as his fiancé. Started saying, my girl. Small downgrade, big message. It had happened gradually, so gradually I hadn't noticed until now, standing in our apartment, replaying every introduction from the past 6 months, like rewinding surveillance footage. At his company holiday party in December, this is my girl Gabby. At his cousin's wedding in January, my girl's a genius with logistics. At the gym 2 weeks ago, running into his college buddy, yeah, my girl keeps me in line. Never fiancé, never future wife, just girl, like I was temporary. Conditional. Still being evaluated for a position I thought I'd already secured. Meanwhile, I'd introduced him as my fiancé to everyone. Proudly. My parents, my boss, the barista at our regular coffee shop, my dentist, anyone who'd listen. My fiancé and I are thinking about Bali for the honeymoon. My fiancé got promoted. My fiancé loves that restaurant. He'd let me, because my commitment made his lie easier to maintain. Every time I claimed him publicly, I dug myself deeper into an investment he was already planning to abandon. The burner wasn't hidden well. Gym bag. No password. He didn't think I'd look, because I never had before. I found it Tuesday morning. Blake had left for his early meeting, kissing me goodbye at 6:30 like always, and I was packing his forgotten protein shaker. The phone was tucked in the side pocket of his gym bag, under a rolled-up towel that smelled like his cologne. Silver. Cheap. The kind you buy at convenience stores with cash. My hands shook as I powered it on, standing in our bedroom, surrounded by photos of us smiling. Photos that now look like evidence of a crime. No password. He really didn't think I'd look. The messages loaded slowly. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out right there on our bedroom floor. Contact name, L. Hundreds of messages. I scrolled, my vision blurring. My throat closing. Can't wait to see you Friday. She's working late again. Told her it's a client dinner. Every lie, cataloged. Every betrayal, time-stamped and saved. The message that shifted everything. I can't wait until she finds out after the refunds clear. Refunds. He wasn't just cheating, he was planning timing. I read it 3 times, trying to make it mean something else. It didn't. Lauren. Her name was Lauren. I scrolled through her profile picture on the messaging app. Mid-20s. Blonde. Bright smile. She worked in marketing at a firm downtown. Her bio said she loved hiking and craft beer. And she knew about me. Worse, she was in on it. They were coordinating my heartbreak around a financial schedule. Waiting until the venue and caterer refunds processed so Blake could recoup his minimal investment before torching everything I'd built. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being strategically dismantled. My breathing went shallow. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we'd picked out together last spring at that expensive furniture store, and felt my entire reality reorganize itself. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a plan. Calculated, timed, executed with the same precision I used to manage projects at work. Except I was the project being managed into obsolescence. He transferred $11,000 from our wedding fund, labeled investment repositioning. The investment was a boutique hotel suite. Twice, I cross-referenced the bank statements with his calendar, spreading both across our kitchen table like I was preparing a presentation. October 15th. His calendar said, client meeting in Boston. The bank statement showed Harbor Light Boutique Hotel, $460. December 3rd. Calendar, Regional Training Seminar. Bank statement, Harbor Light Boutique Hotel, $485. No seminar that weekend. I'd checked his company's training schedule months ago when planning our holiday travel. I'd wanted to make sure we wouldn't have conflicts. He'd spent our money on her. In a hotel I'd looked at for our honeymoon before deciding it was too expensive, too extravagant for our budget. Apparently it wasn't too expensive for his mistress. The irony was so sharp it could cut. I screenshot everything. Backed it up to 3 different cloud accounts. printed copies and stored them in a locked drawer at my office. Blake thought I was practical. He had no idea how practical I could be when building a case. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It was the tone. "She's too practical to leave," he told Lauren. "She'd rather look stable than dramatic." He weaponized my personality. I found the voice memo by accident, scrolling deeper into the burner phone's contents. He'd sent it to Lauren back in January, explaining why he wasn't worried about getting caught. His voice was casual, almost amused, like he was discussing weather patterns instead of destroying someone's life. "Gabby's not the type to blow things up. She'll probably suggest counseling or want to work through it because she's already invested so much time. That's just who she is, rational, measured. She probably already knows something's off but won't push it because she doesn't want to look paranoid." Lauren laughed in the recording. "So you're safe?" "Completely. She values her reputation too much. She'd never make a scene. Her parents are traditional. Her job is corporate. She's built this whole image of having everything together. She won't risk that." He'd studied me, learned my patterns, used my strengths against me. He knew I avoided confrontation, knew I prided myself on being reasonable, knew I'd built a life that looked perfect from the outside. And he gambled everything on me, protecting that image. I didn't confront him. I documented everything, moved my salary to a new account, removed his access, alerted the venue about unauthorized cancellation attempts, changed beneficiary designations. He slept peacefully beside me. I watched him like a stranger. Every night that week, I lay awake while he snored softly, his arm draped over my waist like everything was normal. Like he hadn't spent the afternoon texting another woman. Like he wasn't planning to leave me the moment his financial interests were protected. I'd made calls during my lunch breaks, called my bank and rerouted my direct deposit to a new account Blake didn't know existed. Transferred the remaining wedding fund balance before he could touch it. Put alerts on our venue contract and caterer agreement so I'd be notified of any cancellation attempts. My attorney friend, Olivia, helped me draft protective documents. She worked in family law and had seen variations of this story 100 times. "Are you sure about this approach?" she'd asked over coffee, reviewing my evidence. Completely. I wasn't acting out of rage. This was controlled demolition. Blake thought he was 3 steps ahead. He wasn't even playing the right game. He chose Valentine's dinner. Invited family. Invited his regional manager. He wanted public commitment. He handed me a stage. "I've got a surprise planned," he'd said last week, grinning like a kid planning a birthday party. His excitement had seemed genuine. I'd almost believed he still cared. Valentine's Day fell on Friday this year. He'd made reservations at Marcello's, the most expensive Italian restaurant downtown, the one with the year-long waiting list that he'd somehow bypassed through a work connection. He'd invited both our families. His boss, Mr. Caldwell. My closest friend Hannah. His college roommate. My brother, 22 people total. "I want everyone we love to be there," he'd said, squeezing my hand across our breakfast table. "This relationship means everything to me. I want to celebrate that." Translation: I want witnesses to your commitment, so the breakup looks worse when I initiate it next month. But I saw what he didn't. A room full of people meant a room full of accountability. He was giving me an audience. And I was going to use every single seat. That afternoon I asked calmly, "Are we okay?" He smiled slowly. "You're overthinking again." Again. I nodded. So was he. We were in the kitchen. He was fixing his tie in the hallway mirror, getting ready for dinner. I watched him from the doorway, studying the face I'd kissed 1,000 times, looking for traces of the man I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. I couldn't find him. Maybe he'd never existed. "I just want tonight to be perfect," I said softly, playing the role he expected. "It will be." He turned, pulling me close, his hands on my waist. "I've got everything planned." "Me too." He kissed my forehead. Didn't hear the double meaning. Didn't notice the steel underneath my gentle tone. I'd packed a folder that morning. Printed screenshots, bank statements, text message logs. Everything organized with colored tabs and highlights, the way I organized quarterly reports for work. My friend's husband was a lawyer. He'd reviewed everything yesterday, confirmed I had enough for a civil case if needed. Blake checked his phone, texted someone, smiled that private smile. "Ready?" Completely. The restaurant was perfect. Candlelight, violinist, crystal glasses. He squeezed my hand hard enough to leave a mark. Possessive, confident, certain I wouldn't embarrass him. Marcello's had dim lighting and exposed brick walls covered in Italian landscape paintings. Our table was in the center of the private dining room, surrounded by everyone who mattered to us. White tablecloths, fresh roses in crystal vases, a violinist playing softly in the corner. My parents sat across from his, my best friend Hannah next to my brother, both of them already sipping wine and chatting. Blake's boss, Mr. Caldwell, at the end with his wife, looking dignified in his gray suit. Everyone dressed up, everyone smiling, everyone believing they were here to celebrate love. Blake stood to greet people, his hand on my lower back, guiding me around like property he was showing off. "Doesn't she look beautiful?" he kept saying. They agreed. He beamed. This was his performance. The devoted fiancé. The man who'd landed someone out of his league. He played it perfectly, kissing my temple, pulling out my chair, pouring my wine. I smiled, waited, let him build his tower higher so the fall would be further. Midway through dinner, "Gabby is the most loyal woman I've ever known." His mother wiped a tear. My father smiled proudly. I almost pitied him. Almost. Blake had stood up between the appetizer and main course, glass raised, voice steady and practiced. He'd clearly rehearsed this. "I want to say something before we go any further tonight." Everyone quieted. Forks lowered. Conversations stopped. "I'm the luckiest man in the world. Gabby supported me through everything. The new job, family stuff, all of it. She never complains. Never asks for more than I can give. She's patient, understanding, and loyal to her core." Loyal. That word. Like it was my defining feature. Like loyalty was something to exploit rather than treasure. "She's the kind of woman you marry and never let go." Applause rippled through the room. My mother clutched her napkin, emotional. Hannah raised her glass. Mr. Caldwell nodded approvingly. Blake sat down, squeezing my hand under the table. Confident, safe. He had no idea what I'd buried under my chair in a leather portfolio. He had no idea the loyal woman he described was about to teach him what betrayal actually cost. "We're locking in our engagement party tonight." Applause. Phones recording. He didn't ask me first, he assumed. Blake stood again during dessert, this time holding a small cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. He'd planned this moment carefully, timed it for maximum impact. "So Gabby and I have been talking," he lied smoothly, his smile perfect, "and we want to make our engagement party official. We've picked a date." He opened the envelope with a flourish, pulled out a printed card that looked professionally designed. "April 26th. Mark your calendars, everyone. It's going to be at the Riverside Estate." Everyone cheered. Phones came out. His mother took a photo of us, Blake's arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. Hannah hugged me from across the table, genuinely excited for what she thought was good news. I smiled, said nothing. Let him perform. April 26th was after the refund deadline. After he'd planned to leave, he was building an exit that made him look like the victim when I eventually changed my mind or got cold feet. But I'd already canceled that venue reservation this morning, gotten a full refund. The money was sitting in my private account. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "I'm outside. You deserve to know." Lauren, she had screenshots. And she wasn't crying. She was angry. I excused myself to the restroom, setting my napkin carefully on the table. "Too much wine," I said lightly. Blake squeezed my hand, distracted by a conversation with his father about football. I pushed through the restaurant's heavy wooden doors into the cold February night. The temperature had dropped. My breath came out in white clouds. Lauren stood under the awning, arms crossed, face hard. She wore a black coat and heels. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were red. "You're Gabby. You're Lauren." We stared at each other, two women who'd been lied to by the same man. She was younger than I expected. Pretty in a way that made me understand why Blake had risked everything. "He told me you two were breaking up," she said, voice tight. "That you were just waiting until after wedding commitments cleared. That you were holding him hostage financially. He told me nothing." Her jaw tightened. She pulled out her phone. "Then you need to see this." She showed me messages I hadn't found. Promises he'd made her, plans they'd discussed, a future he'd sold to both of us like a con artist running two marks. Lauren showed me something new. A selfie he had sent her from the restaurant bathroom. Caption, "Wish you were here instead." Timestamp 6 minutes ago. He was actively cheating between courses. I felt something click into place. Not rage. Clarity. The photo showed Blake in Marcello's bathroom mirror, tie loosened, top button undone, smirking at the camera like this was all a game. Behind him, visible through the door crack, was our dining room. Our families. Our future. He was selling while sexting his mistress. He'd excused himself right after his engagement party announcement, told everyone he needed to make an important call. Instead, he'd texted the woman he was planning to leave me for. I thought he was serious about me, Lauren said quietly, her voice breaking slightly. Until tonight, he told me the engagement party was fake, just for show. To keep you calm while paperwork processed. Then he sent that. She scrolled further, her hands shaking slightly. But there's more. Something I just found out this afternoon. Another name in his messages. Vanessa. My stomach dropped to the pavement. There's someone else too. My stomach flipped. He had a second woman in another city. Work trips weren't just work trips. He wasn't splitting affection. He was running a rotation. Vanessa worked in Chicago. Blake traveled there monthly for what he called regional meetings and client development. Except his company didn't have a Chicago office. I'd verified that months ago when planning our calendar. Lauren showed me the messages, her face a mixture of anger and humiliation. Blake had told Vanessa the same story. Told her I was his complicated ex he was financially tied to until things got sorted out. Told her he was planning to move to Chicago once he freed himself from the situation. 3 women, 3 versions of the truth, 3 futures he'd promised while delivering none. How long? I asked, my voice hollow. With me? 8 months, since June. Vanessa's been around longer, I think maybe a year, maybe more. While we'd been venue shopping, while I'd been tasting wedding cakes and choosing bridesmaid dresses, while I'd transferred $32,000 into our joint account, believing we were building something real. He'd been building an empire of lies. And we were all just territories he'd conquered. Lauren forwarded me bank screenshots. He had promised her half the refund after ending things strategically. He was staging the breakup post-refund to minimize losses. I wasn't just a fiancé. I was financial leverage. The screenshots showed messages from December, right before Christmas, while I'd been buying him an expensive watch and planning our holiday travel. Once the venue refund processes, we'll have about $18,000 to split. Then I'm done with this whole mess. We can take that trip to Cancun you wanted. Lauren had responded. You promise? You're really going to end it? I promise, baby. March 15th, Freedom Day. Everything will be clear by then. He'd put a date on it. Circled it on a calendar like a deadline for a work project. My humiliation had a scheduled release date, and he'd planned to profit from it. Split my money with his mistress like they'd pulled off a successful heist. I looked at Lauren, this woman I should have hated, and felt nothing but exhausted solidarity. We were both victims of the same con artist. What do you want to do? She asked, her voice steadier now. I checked my watch. 7:45. Blake would start wondering where I was soon. How do you feel about making an entrance? Her eyes narrowed. Then she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Lead the way. Back inside, the restaurant doors opened. His mother stepped out. She saw Lauren. Then me. Then the printed screenshots in my hand. Her smile collapsed. No, she whispered. Even she hadn't known. Blake's mother, Patricia, had always liked me. She'd helped me pick bridesmaid dresses last fall, spent hours on the phone discussing flower arrangements and family drama. She'd treated me like the daughter she'd always wanted. She looked between Lauren and me, her wine glass still in her hand, her face crumbling in real time as she processed what she was seeing. Gabby, what's happening? Who is this? I handed her my phone, the screenshots already pulled up. Let her read the messages, the promises, the timeline, the money. Watched her hand move slowly to cover her mouth. That's not possible. Blake wouldn't. He couldn't. He did. Lauren stepped forward, her voice surprisingly gentle. I'm Lauren. I've been seeing your son for 8 months. He told me Gabby was his ex. Patricia's legs buckled slightly. I caught her arm, steadied her. I'm so sorry, she whispered, and I realized she was talking to me. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. But something in her face had changed. The softness was gone. Her jaw set in a way that reminded me where Blake got his determination. Go inside, she said, voice suddenly steel. Say what you need to say. I'll be right behind you. Blake tapped his glass. And now, my future wife has something to say. Future wife. He handed me the microphone and winked. The room quieted instantly. Everyone turned toward me, smiling, expectant, phones already out to record what they assumed would be a sweet thank you speech. Blake stood beside me, arm around my waist, playing the devoted fiancé until the final second. His cologne was strong this close, the same scent I'd loved for 3 years. Speech, speech, someone called from the end of the table. I took the microphone from the violinist's stand, felt its weight, looked around the room at faces I'd known for years, people who'd supported us, believed in us, celebrated us, my parents looking proud, Hannah grinning, Mr. Caldwell checking his phone but listening. Blake squeezed my hip, confident, comfortable, certain. Thank you all for being here tonight, I started, my voice steady and clear. Warm smiles, encouraging nods. Blake's right, I do have something to say, something important. He nodded encouragingly, thinking he knew where this was going. I set my leather portfolio on the table, opened it. About transparency, about trust, about what happens when you build a life on lies. His face flickered, just slightly. The smile froze. My fiancé has taught me the importance of transparency. Soft laughter rippled through the room. So tonight, I'd like to be transparent. I laid the screenshots on the table, fanned out like playing cards. Then I connected my phone to the restaurant's Bluetooth speaker. His own voice filled the room. She's too practical to leave. She'd rather look stable than dramatic. Silence detonated. I watched the color drain from Blake's face as his voice continued playing, explaining to Lauren why I'd never find out, why I'd probably stay anyway, why he was completely safe. Every word echoed through the dining room like a confession at trial. The recording ended. Nobody breathed. Then Lauren stepped through the restaurant doors, and he told me the same thing. Gasps. Chairs scraping. Someone dropped a fork. Blake reached for the microphone, his hand shaking. I stepped back, keeping it away from him. His boss, Mr. Caldwell, stood slowly, his face unreadable but his posture rigid. My father's hand was clenched around his napkin, knuckles white. Hannah's mouth hung open, her wine glass tilted and forgotten. Blake's mother had already started crying, but not the happy tears from earlier. The silence stretched, thick, suffocating. Blake opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Gabby, please. That word, please, in front of everyone. His face red, sweating, stammering. His father stood up, his chair scraping loudly. You stole from her? His boss said quietly, dangerously. We'll be reviewing those expense charges Monday morning. His mother cried. Not for him, for me. I removed the ring, placed it on the table. It made a small, sharp sound. That was the loudest thing in the room. Blake grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging in hard enough to hurt. You're humiliating me, in front of everyone. After everything we've been through, I looked at his hand, then his face. Really looked at him. No, I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. I pulled free, my wrist red where he'd gripped it. The room was frozen. 22 people watching a man's life implode in real time. I picked up my portfolio. My coat, my dignity. The venue's been canceled. The deposits are refunded. The joint account is closed. You'll be hearing from my attorney about the $11,000 you stole. Hannah stood, grabbing her purse. My parents followed. So did his mother, avoiding her son's eyes. Blake stood alone at the table, surrounded by evidence and witnesses, with nowhere left to hide. The last thing I heard as I walked out was Mr. Caldwell's voice, cold and professional. We need to talk. My office, Monday morning, 8 sharp. 3 months later, forensic audit at his firm, promotion revoked, probation issued, attorney letter, reimbursement completed, new apartment, promotion secured, therapy started, peace regained. He sent one final text, you humiliated me. I typed back, no, you underestimated me. Blocked. And here's what I learned. Men who think you're too calm to leave are usually the ones who panic when you do. His company investigated the expense reports after Mr. Caldwell made a formal inquiry. They found irregularities stretching back 18 months. Hotels, dinners, flights to cities where the company had no clients. Blake was placed on formal probation, his recent promotion pulled, his bonus revoked. I got my money back, every single cent, plus interest through my attorney's demand letter. Blake's father actually helped facilitate that, ashamed of what his son had become. My new apartment has better light and costs less. My promotion came with a corner office and a 15% raise. Turns out my boss had been watching my work closely. Lauren and I got coffee once, 3 weeks after Valentine's. Compared notes. Laughed darkly at how identical his lies had been, word for word. She'd ended things with him that night. So had Vanessa, apparently. He'd lost all 3 of us within 48 hours. Vanessa sent flowers to my office with a note. Thank you for your courage. You saved me years. And me? I'm rebuilding. Slowly. Carefully. But this time, only for myself. That Valentine's toast wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. When someone bets on your silence, make them lose publicly.